Well, thanks for joining us. I'm Zach Roach, and this is a Veterans Day special. I'm with Fred Holsey, who is an impressive 101. So, Fred, why don't you go ahead and introduce us? Just tell us about yourself and where you grew up and whatever else you find important.
Well, I grew up in White County, but left there when I was 17 because my father was dead and I had to go into CC camps to help support the family. And I stayed in there in Gainesville a while and in Nevada for months and then in California and worked in Mare Island Navy Yard in Vallejo, California for a year, 1942 to beginning of 43, working on submarines, building subs and repairing subs mostly. And it's a good job, made good money, but I wanted to come home. I hadn't been home in a long time, so I quit and come home and joined the Merchant Marines. I went my training in St. Petersburg, and when I finished my training, I was shipped out from Philadelphia on convoys going to the Atlantic and the Mediterranean and into Sicily and the southern part of Italy because the Germans were still holding the northern part of Italy. And I sailed during the war different ships.
Would you explain for us what the Merchant Marines, were and why they were so heavily targeted by the enemy?
Well, it's the cargo. They keep. That's how the military supplies went. We're under the jurisdiction of the Coast Guard. They done all the endorsements, your ratings, and getting your papers, and inspections and all. They were also if we did anything need discipline anyway, it ought to be tried by the Coast Guard, and they were good, very good. We got to thank the branch of services that don't get credit for a well-done job is the Coast Guard, and we are under them. And you don't get an endorsement for a job unless you get inspected by the Coast Guard. And it usually took me about 5 to 6 days each license that I sit down and write, a week, sitting down writing my exam. And you have a commander or lieutenant commander so-and-so watching you all the time. And anybody that got a license got it honestly. That's about all I can say about that.
So what motivated you to join the Merchant Marines opposed to when you were working in factories?
Well, I had got that good job, but I'd met men out there, some of them told of their adventure, traveling. I always wanted to travel. And so I worked for a year, and I got 2 promotions there. I was making good, but I hadn't been home, and I come home, and I had it in my mind to go into the Merchant Marines. And I believe I'd have made a better Merchant Marine than with a soldier. I don't think that I liked it too good. Because you got your freedom, you can quit when you want to, and you go in and apply for a job if they got them, and like anything else. And it's pick a ship going wherever you want to go if you're lucky, and the type of ship. The food most of the time was good. Sometimes we get cooks that wasn't, but we always complained. But it was a good life. After you get your license, you got your own private room and everything. And nowadays, maybe all of them do. It's advanced a lot since, the last 25, 30 years. It's been a lot of advancements, and conditions are good, retirements are good, and and you get good vacations. I had good vacations and paid vacations.
So, what was life like in the Atlantic under constant wariness of attack from
Well, it was
German
in
U-boats?
convoys. We had large, first trip was large convoys, and we got all right till we got into the Mediterranean, and then we had an attack there. The planes come over, but they didn't drop bombs, they dropped flares to light the convoy up. And when they did that, the submarines attacked, but my ship was near the center of the convoy, so we was safe, pretty safe. But we heard some explosions and seen some fires and all. That's all I seen, the action I seen in that time.
So then, where did you move around from after you went on these convoys in the Mediterranean and Atlantic?
Well, I stayed there until after the war. And then I, still sailed North Africa, Russia, Romania, Turkey, and Greece, and those places. And I was in Buenos Aires, Argentina, when the Japanese surrendered. I was down there on my ship. That was a long trip. And I never got into the Pacific during World War II.
So you traveled around a lot.
Yeah, that trip involved Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina. And from back, we loaded grain, I think, and went to North Africa, brought to North Africa, and then round to Germany and places like that. And then a year later, I made another trip to Argentina. I was down there 2 years, and during their winter, I missed summer here 2 years in a row because down there the season was opposite. But it was an enjoyable trip going to Argentina, and good people down there.
So with you traveling around so much, what's some of your favorite moments, either out at sea or in port?
Well, the only place I never went to was Australia and India. I wanted to, but I never did. But after I got to sailing, I went with one company, the Lykes Brothers Steamship Company out of New Orleans, and I stayed with them, until I retired. And sailing, I was sailing in the unlicensed for a few years, and I got my engineer's license and started sailing as an engineer, and I made my way up to chief engineer. So my latter years as chief, I went on one ship, the Leslie Lykes, for 18 years, but not all of that time as chief, most of it was. And then after I got off it, I went on another one as chief, and then I retired off of one of their ships as chief. And on that ship, he'd go in it most anywhere except South America. It didn't go down there. But I'd go to South Africa, East Africa, North Africa, Greece, Israel, and Turkey, and all those places, Poland, Finland, Norway, places like that.
So after the Second World War, how did you get involved in Korea and Vietnam?
I didn't go to Korea during war. Their fighting. I got there later, but I never during the war. I lost a brother there, a young brother in Korea. He was 18 years old, but I never did during the Korean War. But I went there many, many times.
So what were, when conflicts weren't ongoing, what were some of the things your convoys were doing in peaceful times?
Well, in peaceful times, there wasn't any convoys. We just general cargoes, and off of the Philippines one time, we went through the eye of a typhoon. That was scary, but we were safe. One day at noon, all of a sudden it got calm, and for about 20 minutes, Then when we got on the other side, we had to, of course, head the ship into the weather. You do that.
So what was it out at sea? Was it very difficult in everyday life?
Not much. Not much. As you worked, as an engineer, of course, when at the beginning I was a white standing engineer, and we just do, you'd be on 4 hours and off 8 and back on watch again till I got to be first engineer, and then I sailed that for a while as all day work, and then I made chief and stayed on that ship for many years. But that ship also was out in the Atlantic in '76. We could run into a hurricane in rough weather, and we had cargo that had cotton, household goods, and piping for oil wells, and the piping broke loose, arc set in the tween decks, set the ship on fire out at sea. And it's 2.5 days to the Azores. We radioed in to go to Azores to get help. We got to Azores. They didn't have equipment, no CO2. They couldn't help us, and they wouldn't fight the fire at the dock. We'd have to get outside in deep water, which was a good thing we didn't. So we was on the radio with the headquarters in New Orleans, and they asked the captain and I, could we make it to Spain, El Faro, Spain, which is 2.5 days more. So I'd already isolated that cargo hold that was on fire, so I was pumping steam in there to contain it. So we went on to El Faro, Spain, 2.5 days. And then when we opened it up, we had heavy equipment. We couldn't move it quick enough. The fire exploded. We had drums of fuel oil additive to make fuel, and that exploded. And we sat there and we'd have sunk if we hadn't sat on the bottom. We was within about 2 feet of going, the water coming up on deck. And we finally, we lost about 60% of the cargo for the fire. And we stayed in Spain 48 days, repairing the ship and getting rid of the damaged cargo. But then we repaired it enough to continue the voyage, get it back to the States, and was in the shipyard in Galveston about 3 months, making repairs to the damage we had on that. That's the worst thing that ever happened to me on the ship, was that fire.
So what would you do in your time when you spent so long in, as you mentioned, in Spain for 48 days?
It's a good place. His people was nice, real nice. It's up in the northwest corner in El Faro, and we just go around town, and when I was busy most of the time, of course, my job, but just shop around and go around, and we visited cities around and places. You know, the company furnished us a car to the captain and I, and we just enjoyed ourselves and had some of the best meals I ever had in Spain, because they're real, know how to cook and how to feed you.
So what kind of relationships did you build with, maybe the captain and some of your other crew, spending so long on the ship?
It's all good. The one captain I got good with all of them. One captain, we was together about 12 years, and we got along good. Then the crew, sometimes you might get one that was lazy, and that happens everywhere. You expect that. I had 16 men, mostly in my department, including cadets, training.
So what motivated you to join the Merchant Marines opposed to when you were working in the factories?
Well, I had got that good job, but I'd met men out there, some of them told of their adventure, traveling. I always wanted to travel. And so I worked for a year, and I got 2 promotions there. I was making good, but I hadn't been home, and I come home, and I had it in my mind to go into the Merchant Marines. And I believe I'd have made a better Merchant Marine than with a soldier. I don't think that I liked it too good, because you got your freedom. You can quit when you want to, and you can go in and apply for a job if they got them, and like anything else. And it's pick a ship going to wherever you want to go if you're lucky, and the type of ship. The food most of the time was good. Sometimes we get cooks that wasn't, but we always complained. And but it was a good life. After you get your license, you got your own private room and everything. And nowadays, maybe all of them do. It's advanced a lot since, well, the last 25, 30 years. It's been a lot of advancements, and conditions are good, retirements are good, and and you get good vacations. I had good vacations, and paid vacations. But
Tell us a little bit about the CCC, and explain what it was as FDR's program and why you chose to go
well,
work
I
there.
went in there, had to, because my dad was dead, and there was 9 of us, and getting a place to live, nobody would hardly rent a home to a widow woman with 9 kids. We had to get to work and get enough money to make a down payment on a place up in White County to have a place to live. We lived there for about a year and a half, and then the house burned to the ground. We wasn't nobody home. Well, we had good neighbors. We went and moved. I moved in with a family, treated me like one of their own, and they helped. They built a house. A lot of it was donated lumber and donated help. Within about a week or so, they built us another house. Well, I wasn't old enough to go into CCCs then, but when I got old, 17, I went in because $21 a month would go home. That was just enough to keep the payments on the place. And that's when the CCCs closed then, because of wartime. And they got me a job with a civil service in Mare Island, working in shipyard. I made good money, so I made enough to pay it off. And my older brother, the oldest of the family, he was drafted into the Army, and he went through Africa and Sicily, and in Italy. He was 3 years overseas in World War II. And I met him over there. He'd had pneumonia because he's a signal corps. They dragged phone lines to the foxholes, and he got pneumonia. And then they took him out too soon and back on the job, and he got it again, and it almost killed him. But he wasn't as much help as some of the rest of us. When he's young, he rather play around, I guess, and get drunk. And my brother, younger than I, he went into the Navy. He got into the latter part of World War II, but he stayed in the Navy for 21 years, I believe, and made good in the Navy. And then when he got out of the Navy, he went to work with Lockheed, working on helicopters in Vietnam during the war. He went over there 2 times, done well. And Of course, he's dead. He's been dead for several years. But and then I got a younger brother. He was killed in Korea. He didn't, I don't think, reached his 18th birthday. He was killed in North Korea, and his body is still above the North Korean capital up in the cemetery up there.
So tell us about your time when you were in the CCC. What kind of projects were you working on? And
Well,
is there anything still here today?
Well, yes, I've worked here in Gainesville on the farms, and over we built a dam, Glade Shoals, on a Glade Shoals Creek or something. We built, there's a lake over there. We built that while I was here. And when we went into Nevada, I worked on building fences. We built a fence 20 miles straight. But then it's cold, and I didn't like the cold, and I got the job at being the blacksmith for the CC camps there. And I worked the rest of the time, but I was in the blacksmith shop for this warm. And then I signed up and went to Reno to study auto mechanic. And that camp closed after a few weeks, and I sent me to Redding, California, and I still study, and that's where, when they closed, and got me a job in the Mare Island Navy Yard down there as an outside machinist helper. And I worked there and went to school at night, and made outside machinist, got a pay raise, and then a few months after that I got another. I could have stayed there. I was exempted from the draft. The draft board managers told me that they couldn't draft me because of the job I had. But they tried to make me come back too. They wrote me a letter, told me I couldn't get a job nowhere else, but I went in the Merchant Marine anyway. And I didn't, from the time I left Mare Island and come home, it was about a month or so, 2 months, that I didn't do nothing. Look for some work around there, but nobody would hire me because I hadn't been classified, because of where I was at. They couldn't draft me anyway, so I signed up. Took me a few weeks, 2 weeks or so, to get the papers all filled out to go into the Merchant Marines. And then went to Florida, stayed there a while, into training, and then shipped out. They sent us to Philadelphia to ship out.
So when you were first in the Merchant Marines in World War II, what kind of supplies were you bringing to the soldiers, and how was that affecting them?
Well, ammunition and guns, and I was on a tanker too, carried oil, and matter of fact, we even carried planes on deck. I remember they were P-38s, and also some PT boats. We had Navy PT boats because the Navy crew stayed on those on the ship, and they eat in their mess room. You know, they had to, because there's no convenience for them. And that was one trip. And most of the time, well, I carried tanks, and one time I carried some troops. We carried troops picked up troops in Philadelphia. And one guy, I met him, he was from Gainesville. I can remember his name. But I don't know if I should call it or not, but I remember his name well.
So what'd you do when you moved into retirement? I mean, did you get bored?
Well, yes. I garden mostly. And the truth is, I've been retired longer than I worked.
So
I retired, I think, I got off the ship in '82, and I took my retirement in '83.
So what do you do now to stay active and
Nothing.
keep going? Nothing.
Nothing. I gardened up to a couple of years ago. I've had some good gardens and took care of that. just enjoying doing nothing. I'm not much of a fisherman. I build a lake to fish, and then I don't fish, and I don't hunt. I never cared too much for hunting. And sports, I never was into sports. I didn't go to no ball games or nothing. I did high school, and my sons was in band in high school. I went while they was in high school, visit that. Well, a sad one. We was off a ship about 1,000 miles south of Hawaii, and I was first engineer at the date, and went in to eat at breakfast time, and another crewman come in to eat, it's the officer's mess, and a passenger lady from Canada, she dressed like an old Quaker dress down, she come in to eat, and I remember she asked, they had oatmeal, asked if was that real oatmeal, and he told her yes. She repeated, says, is that really, really oatmeal? And he said yes, and she got mad, got up, went passageway through the ship. That's the last time she was seen. She went over the side, and that's, well, it's not a good feeling. And when we missed her, they have a rule on the ship, and the captain, we had one of the best sea captains. We'd go back and forth, cover the distance where she was last seen on the ship, and it so happened that the sea was calm. It's like glass, and that far out, we chased logs. We'd see at sea and chased them down, but we never did find her. She just disappeared.
Well, thank you for joining us. This is Fred Hulsey, a 101-year-old Merchant Marine veteran, and this will be our Veterans Day special. So thank you, Fred. You had some wonderful stories.
Not much.